There is quite a lot of stigma around mental health.
But this was such an eye-opening statement for me, that grief is not like somebody passed away.
As you said, grief is not linear. It's kind of like a stone we carry in our pockets. There are days when, you barely even think about it. So as you said, like special occasions like Father's Day, Mother's Day, anniversaries. Sometimes you're not directly involved in the situation you're grieving. So for example, the Ahmedabad plane crash, right?
Right.
I noticed that quite a lot of people still struggle with opening up about their emotions, their feelings, or not knowing where to get the support from. People believe that if they're sensitive or if they express their emotions, it's a sign of weakness, which is not true.
In Asian countries, you would cry out loud, you talk about it. I think venting does help with grief.
If a relationship ends, people feel that the only way to move on is just getting into another relationship.
Have you ever lost someone you love the most? A parent, a friend, a pet? Or maybe you're just feeling overwhelmed with emotions you don't quite know how to handle. Hello and welcome back to the Neha Jog podcast. Today's guest, Palak Dadwal, is here to help us understand grief, loss, and emotional healing. She's a Neuro-Linguistic programming NLP specialist, grief and loss coach, and the author of two insightful journals, Freedom Within, which is a 100-day journal, and The Courage to Feel. In this episode, we explore why it's important to truly feel and express our emotions, how grief can show up in unexpected ways, and practical tools from NLP that can help us heal and move forward. This episode is especially for anyone who's struggling with grief, emotional overwhelm, or simply wants to learn how to better connect with their feelings. Make sure to watch this episode till the end to discover helpful insights and gentle guidance that can support you or someone you care about through tough and emotional times. Let's dive right into the conversation by welcoming our guest, Palak Dadwal. And if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. It really helps and motivates me to bring more such meaningful and valuable content your way. So welcome to the podcast, Palak.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you. Can you give us a brief introduction of your journey so far and what led you to work with grief and, this emotional space?
Yes, definitely, Neha. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be here. I started working in the profession when I was 19 years old. So that's how my journey started. I started working as a behavior interventionist with kids with autism. And that's when I got to know about developmental disabilities, mental health disorders, also strategies which can be helpful for others to regulate their emotions, to learn new skills. And since then, I have been working in the same profession. After that, I worked in different capacities for different companies, different organizations. And I felt that there's a gap in our South Asian community that still there's quite a lot of stigma around mental health. I noticed that quite a lot of people still struggle with opening up about their emotions, their feelings, or not knowing where to get the support from if they are, dealing with a mental health concern. So that inspired me to establish my own private practice. I named it Mind Makeover Services. Mainly two programs that I offer. One, as you said, is the Grief and Loss Recovery Program. I feel that dealing with the loss in our life is such an important skill because the loss is something we cannot avoid. Like in life, like many circumstances, right, lead us to experience loss in our life. And through my program, I educate people about healthy grieving, which we talk about what grief is later on in the podcast. And also there's another program which is based on neuro-linguistic programming to reshape our belief system, because also that's something, we feel that we cannot maybe change our belief system, but that's not true. With different strategies and techniques, we are able to reshape what we feel about ourselves and also what we feel about the world as well, so that through reshaping our own belief system, we can make better choices in life. We can maybe develop some healthy habits. We can reclaim self-worth, self-esteem. So those are the two main programs I offer through my private practice.
But sorry to interrupt, but 19 years when you started this, you were quite young. How did you even think that, you want to work in this space? Did you have any personal experiences?
So not so many personal experiences. I was a student. I went to university, and my education, I pursued professional counseling.
Okay.
So I was looking for like a part-time job at that time, and I started working. Was my first part-time job, working with kids with autism. And as I worked in the field, I learned quite a lot and realized that this is something I want to pursue in my life.
Okay. So after coming here, when did you start your own, the Makeover Minds?
Yeah. So Mind Makeover Services was established last year in 2024.
In 2024?
Yes.
So you've been in Canada for quite a while now.
Yes.
So was it a single trigger point when you thought I should go back to what I was doing, or what was the story behind starting this now?
Yes. As I said, that since the age of 19, I have been working in the profession. I worked for different organizations and, held leadership roles as well. And during my interaction with my clients, right? Specifically when I started to interact more within our community, South Asian community, that's when I started to realize that maybe there aren't many practitioners or therapists or counselors out there for our community, right? People who speak Punjabi or Hindi. So that was the language where it was a thing which I noticed, that maybe our community feel more comfortable working with a practitioner from their own community. So that was one of the inspiration. Also, as I said, that I noticed quite a bit of stigma around mental health as well, that, when I try to, talk to them about their feelings or emotions, there are quite a lot of people still which prefer to shut down, right? They feel
definitely.
that it's better to keep up, which is completely fine. It's a personal choice as well, like keeping things to yourself. But I feel that, processing your emotions in a healthy way is a skill which everybody should practice. And that was my inspiration to start Mind Makeover Services. Quite a lot of, most of my clients are from our community, South Asian community. It was just a safe space I wanted to provide to our community, where they can feel, comfortable receiving help and also exploring their own emotions, talking about their mental health.
Yeah. And I think the most important point is having someone from your own community.
Yeah.
You already feel that you understand.
Yeah.
You know what community we come from, what are we going through, rather than, if for a person who doesn't belong to your community. But from what you're doing right now, would you call yourself a therapist or a counselor? Or
so yes, I am. I'm pursuing professional counseling.
Okay.
Right now, I'm a certified grief and loss recovery specialist. So I take 101 sessions with my clients, specifically to grief and loss recovery. So I'm certified in that. And also I'm a certified Neuro-Linguistic programming practitioner. So you can call me grief and loss recovery specialist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. So you started working in this field quite early.
Yes.
And you've been doing this for a while now. So what were some of the challenges, even for you personally? Because sometimes, being a grief and loss specialist, there is a baggage that maybe you bring yourself with. Sometimes we feel so bad about someone else's situation and you yourself struggle mentally. But what were your challenges?
Yes. So, of course, I had to learn to take care of myself first. There's quite a lot of time and effort I put in self-care. As you said, that sometimes when we're working with individuals and they share their own stories, that can feel heavy to us as well. That's something, of course, I had to learn to deal with. Another thing is that I feel that there's quite a lot of conditioning while like when working with clients from our community, as I said, like why do we have to bring up past, why we want to reflect back on past, the loss has already happened, like why there's a need of processing emotions around that. So that conditioning is so like deeply rooted. That's what I noticed. And to bring someone to that comfortable stage where they feel to open up about their emotions which they have been holding on to.
Right.
I had to like work on my own skill set to make people feel comfortable so that they want to do this work, they want to explore grief, loss.
Right. So getting into the main subject now, how do you actually define grief in the space that you work in?
Yes. So grief is a natural and very normal response to a significant loss. So for example, someone experienced death of a loved one, our body will react in a way. We will of course experience certain emotions after experiencing that loss, like sadness, hurt. So grief is that process when your body reacts. So it's a very natural and normal response of our body to a significant loss. Quite a lot of times, people feel that grief is something which needs to be fixed. Oh, why I'm feeling this way, why I'm feeling sad, why I'm hurt. But there's a need to understand that it's a very natural response. It is something which is unavoidable, and we should honor our grief and give it some space, so that we can, grieve in a healthy manner.
Right. But one of my friends, she lost her father about a decade ago.
Okay.
And recently on Father's Day, she posted a post on Instagram which said that people need to understand how grief is not linear and it can come anytime, anywhere. Sometimes when you lose someone, you don't feel so much, but on occasions or sometimes, suddenly you remember that person and you find yourself crying, but it's been such a long time. So maybe the idea was, or how I never thought about it, to be honest, but this was such an eye-opening statement for me, which is so true, that grief is not like somebody passed away, then you are very sad and then it goes, like people say time heals everything. Maybe not.
Yeah.
That's not true.
That's right. And thank you so much, Neha. You shared that example because, as you said, grief is not linear. It's kind of like a stone we carry in our pockets. For example, like we have experienced a significant loss and now there's this stone we have been carrying in our pocket. Sometimes we feel the weight of it. Sometimes we don't. We are super busy in our own life. But there are days when we really feel the weight of carrying that stone in our pocket.
Right.
So that's how grief is. It's kind of like waves. There are days when it's like really high. There are days when, you barely even think about it. So as you said, like special occasions like Father's Day, Mother's Day, anniversaries.
Yeah.
Of course, those are the occasions when many of us reflect back on our lives.
Yeah.
And that's when we grieve the losses we have experienced in our lives.
Right. Yeah, which totally makes sense.
Yes.
But previously, like, when you gave the definition of grief, you mentioned that it is how your body is reacting to a loss, maybe of a person, of your pet, or whoever, your friend. Can it be physical and mental both?
Yes. There are physical signs, for example, extreme tiredness. Someone may be experiencing sleep disturbances, even disturbance in the eating pattern is another example. Also, it can affect like cognitively. It can affect a person cognitively as well, having difficulty making decisions,
right,
feeling confused about things. So those are physical and cognitive signs, and there are some like challenging emotions a person may experience, like extreme sadness, frustration, anger is very commonly seen people grieving.
Yeah, I've seen some people like falling unconscious right away.
Yes.
Feeling sick to their stomach, throwing up, so many other things, right? Your body can react. But on the contrary, can you feel nothing or be numb and you just don't know how to process this? These are very two both the reactions are very different than each other.
It is, of course, commonly seen when people, they're numb. After experiencing significant loss. But as I said, that those emotions will show up maybe later on. That's because even grief, it looks different to everybody. Everybody reacts in different ways to a significant loss. So you're right that, there are two different like opposite ways people can, very different from each other, in which people can react to a significant loss. And as you said that we believe that time heals everything. Maybe that's not true. Reason being, then we wouldn't be feeling anything about, experiences which took place 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but we still remember them. When we reflect back on our past, we still experience emotions related to those experiences. So that's a myth that time heals everything. I think we need to understand our grief and give our emotions some space and expression to deal. That's how we heal.
That's true. And that was such an eye-opening thing for me to learn about grief, right?
That's right.
I came across this term, complicated grief. What is that?
So complicated grief is when it, for example, you are grieving about like multiple experiences in your life, or sometimes, you're not directly involved in the situation you're grieving. So for example, the Ahmedabad plane crash, right? We didn't know any person who was aboard on that flight, but we still felt hurt, sad, maybe frustrated as well, right? We can grieve experiences we were not directly involved in. We can also grieve relationships, people who we don't know personally.
Right. But how different is it from the normal grief that people, is there any significant difference in both?
Not much, because as I said, that grief can look different. In a way, your body will react anyways. Right. But it's just that for the complicated grief, sometimes it's difficult to understand that you're grieving. Right. That the loss you're grieving about, it's not onto the surface, I would say, as much. Sometimes, for example, as I'm saying, the Ahmedabad plane crash, you might question yourself, why I'm feeling sad. I don't even know those people who lost their lives, in that crash, or I wasn't directly, like my family, my loved ones, or even we weren't involved in that, accident. It has nothing to do with our lives, but we are still grieving. So you see like how there's an extra layer to our grief. Right. So that's how it becomes complicated.
I could totally understand, because, I have myself been in these situations so many times.
Yes.
I had a school friend, and her father passed away when we were in school in grade 6th or 7th. And couple years later, 5-7 years later, she lost her mom as well.
Okay.
And when I heard that news, I was like, I can't stop thinking about it. I was so sad, and I was just thinking, how are they going to manage? What she must be feeling? What is she going through? And my brain just wouldn't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
So this is what complicated grief would usually look like. This is another side of it. Sometimes, people feel so guilty about losing someone or something, even if they were like not involved in any ways. What is that?
Yes, so guilt is a very common response to a loss. Especially, I have noticed that in my clients who have lost like a loved one, a death of a parent, or even death of a child, because they feel that maybe I could have taken a better care of my parent, or I could have spent more time with them while they were alive. I could have done more while they were alive, right? So there's guilt associated with death of a loved one, which I have noticed very commonly in my clients. It's a very common response, because you feel that maybe you could have done more.
More, right.
Yes.
Can you share a example without taking names that you had a client and how?
Yes. So there's this client who lost his mother at a very young age in his life, and never spoke about it throughout the life, right? Maybe he at different occasions he felt that there's something missing in his life, but every time he would talk about his loss, he would say that that mother figure never existed, so I don't even know if I'm missing anything in my life. So that's how he surfaced it for many years. And recently he lost his dad as well, and that's when he realized that the way he reacted to the death of his dad was completely different how he's been dealing with death of the mother.
Mom.
And that's when he realized that maybe there are emotions he's been just suppressing for all those years following the death of the mother. And so that's one of the example that sometimes, as you said, that we feel numb, right? Maybe that numbness is being confused with suppressing our emotions. We suppress our emotions so much that it feels that we are not feeling anything.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a great example though. Like people who, and I think majority of the people, because there is not much awareness of how to deal with grief and therapy and talking about it, what would your advice be to people who are silently grieving, but they don't even know exactly this? What would you advise to people in those situations?
Yes. So as I said, grief is first of all, like a person should understand that grief is not something which needs to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with the person grieving. It's a body's natural and normal reaction to a significant loss. So really embrace this journey, honor your body, that your body is reacting to a significant loss. That's step number one, giving yourself that space to honor your own feelings and emotions. And expression is so important. I feel that sometimes we feel that we have to be strong for others, or we have to mask off our emotions so much so that people perceive that, we have been dealing with that loss in a very strong way. But I think at some point we need to learn ways to express what we are really feeling, maybe creating that support system for ourselves. Sometimes that comes from your family, your friends, but sometimes you have to reach out to a professional, or you have to reach out to someone who doesn't know but is capable of understanding and helping you process those emotions. So that would be my advice to someone grieving, that really understand that there is nothing wrong with you if you're grieving after significant loss. It's very normal to grieve, and find ways which works for you to express your emotions. For some people, it's talking. For others, it could be writing. There's a research study found out that there was a higher interest in creativity while they were grieving. Some people find creating art, or in getting involved in creative activities, that's a safe way of expressing their emotions. So everybody has their own way of expressing emotions. So I would advise, people to find that way which they feel comfortable in, and express their emotions.
Right. I think sometimes when people are so busy in their everyday routine, they don't even have time to spend with themselves.
That's right.
When you spend some time with yourself, it's just then you could understand what your creative outflow of your emotions and de-stressing and other stuff is, right?
That's right.
But just like this, what are some of, and you have been working with a lot of people, so in your opinion, what are some of the common myths that you see or misconceptions that people hold when it comes to grief?
Yes. So very common one, replace your loss. If a relationship ends, people feel that the only way to move on is just getting into another relationship. That's the way of moving on. But a reminder I would like to give to people is that even though if you find a replacement, it's okay to explore another relationship, right? Because of course life goes on. But what experience you had in your previous relationship, that's going to stay with you. There is no point of running away from your past or trying so hard to find a replacement. The emotions you experience in your previous relationship, that's also a part of your life. So it's going to stay with you. So rather than just quickly finding a replacement. It's a better way to deal with the emotions you have been holding on to from that previous relationship.
Yeah.
So replacing your loss is one of the myth. Another one, time heals everything.
Yeah.
You need to take intentional efforts to express your emotions. The third one, be strong for others. That's something I have noticed with my clients who has experienced death of a loved one. They feel that they have to be strong so that they can take care of others. But in that way, maybe they're invalidating their own feelings. How you can be strong for others when you're struggling
yourself,
expressing your own emotions. So yeah, those are the common ones I have noticed.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think our culture or upbringing somehow influences this behavior?
Yes. The conditioning comes from that. Very commonly, आपने सुना ही होगा कि अपनी बात अपने तक रखो.
Yeah.
Right? Emotional sensitivity is a weakness. That's another thing. A lot of people believe that if they're sensitive or if they express their emotions, it's a sign of weakness, which is not true.
Yeah, and that especially is applicable to men.
Yes.
That's what usually men are just, thrown onto, like,
that's
you
right.
have to be strong.
Yes.
You can't be weak. Also, in terms of like dealing with grief in Asian countries, you would cry out loud, you talk about it. I think venting does help with grief. Like, you talk about it, it makes you feel better.
Yes.
Unlike, most North American countries where you grieve in isolation, probably.
Yes. So, of course, talking about it, expressing the more you can, it does help dealing with your emotions. Yeah. But as the Western countries is there's an example. If you feel that you're not getting those opportunities where you can really talk about it, there's quite a lot of self-help tools as well, which are available, which you can utilize, start to learn to express your emotion. There are write about your grief. There are so many journals which you can buy, or even whatever you're feeling like every day, like the thoughts which are, which you have been experiencing the most, which you feel that are quite on the surface. Write about them. What are the emotions associated with those thoughts? What do you feel about your loss?
Yeah, just like the book that you have written.
Yes.
So this is a 100-day journal, right?
Yes.
So what help will this book provide? Let's say.
Yes. So when I created this journal, I used quite a lot of neuro-linguistic programming techniques. That was something which was like my main focus while I was creating this. So this book, it's 100 days. Journal. 100 days you will, like, there are like prompts, because sometimes that's what I notice. What should we write about? We don't even know. Like, it's a blank piece of paper, and like, we feel confused about like how to start with journaling.
Right.
So that's why I created it. Got general prompts in it, very specific questions, and there are 3 sections in it. So for like for example, the first 30 days you work on the first section, and then you move on to the next step. And while working on it, you will see that you have started to realize what limiting beliefs you have been holding on to. Why are you even overthinking? What are the patterns which you have adapted yourself throughout your life? And by the end of the journal, the 100 days, you would be able to realize that, there is a way you can break free from that cycle of overthinking. Okay. So that was my inspiration behind writing this journal, because I wanted to provide, specific, like a guide.
For people who have not written and they don't know.
Yeah.
But this is especially for people dealing with grief?
This one is overthinking.
Overthinking, which we all do, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
This one is for overthinking, 100 days.
Okay.
General, yeah.
And where would people find this book if they want to?
Yes, so it's on Amazon.
Amazon?
Yes.
Okay.
So people can directly order it from Amazon. If anybody would like to learn more about it, feel free to reach out to me as well. I got an Instagram page. They can place an order directly to me as well.
Definitely. I'll link the Instagram page
Sure.
on the screen. Some specific days, like we were talking about, like anniversaries or birthdays,
Mhm.
are especially triggers for the grief that we have had in the past. How does a person deal with it?
Well, everyone's situation differs, right? So for example, as you're giving the Father's Day, right? Recently,
Yeah.
a lot of people celebrated Father's Day. But for a person who lost his
Yeah.
or her dad, right? When the person sees the world celebrating a day like a Father's Day,
Yeah.
of course, the person is going to reflect back on his own experience that he cannot celebrate that day because he lost his dad. So that's why these special occasions, they can be very heavy for the grievers.
Yeah.
The best way to grieve on those occasions is just, as I say, express what you're feeling. It's
Yeah.
completely normal that you are feeling sad on a special day because your life is different from the others which are celebrating that day, right? Their
Right.
life experience is not same as yours. So it's
Yeah.
very normal to feel sad. It's very normal to feel hurt on those special occasions.
Definitely. But we have been talking a lot about expressing ourselves, like, talking or crying. And usually you would want, especially like because we have been brought up in a community setting, you would want to vent it out to maybe someone, your parent, your sibling, your friend, your best friend, someone. Not many people, most of the people don't know what to say. Like if I am venting out, the common answer would be, it's okay, yaar, it happens. What can you do about it? Or just forget about it. It's okay, move on. Surface level.
Yeah.
What does this affect on a person who is grieving? And what would you advise to those people? Like, what can they say instead? Right?
Yes. So that can sound like invalidating someone's emotions and feelings.
Right.
All of the examples you have given. Creating that safe space, and even in your body language, if you can display that you're being non-judgmental, that whatever the person is going through, you're there just to listen. Right? Sometimes it's providing that hearing ear, not saying much, but providing that hearing ear that, okay, I'm here to listen to you. That active listening part is very important when you're supporting someone grieving. What the other person could say, as I said, that those myths that life goes on, or find a replacement, move on, it happens, stay strong for others, there's no need to talk about it too much. All those statements should be avoided while we are like supporting someone grieving. The best thing you can do is just provide that safe space to that person to talk in whatever way the person wants to talk. In whatever way the person feels comfortable to talk and express his or her own emotions. So instead of like giving advices, it's better to provide that active listening.
Okay. And even if you don't have anything to say, at least don't say these things.
Yes.
If you have experiences, maybe share that.
Yes, definitely. Or validate that whatever you're feeling, your feelings are valid, your emotions are valid. If I was in a situation like that, maybe I would feel the same.
Yeah. Some people, it is very hard for them to get out of this. They feel very stuck, overthinking and thinking about same thing over and over again. What would your advice be to them?
Yes. So when a person realizes that it has started to affect their many aspects of their lives, there is no there shouldn't be no hesitation to reach out for support, right? There are people out there who are ready to listen. There are people out there who are ready to provide that support. Sometimes we have to take that first step to reach out or create that support system for ourselves. As you're saying, that if someone is feeling so stuck that they don't know like what to do in a situation, like they have been holding on to all these challenging emotions for super, super long time, maybe it's a time for them to explore how they can create that support system for them. So that could be like reaching out to professional as well. There's so many free resources here as well. Like, for example, distress line. Distress center line. It's 24 hours. You can call the people, the crisis line worker. They're trained to provide that active listening part.
But aren't those services for like extreme cases? No?
Anybody could call distress center.
Okay. So the first step to someone could take towards healing is help yourself, talk to someone, or find a professional who offers such services.
Yes. And also practice some self-compassion. There is instead of being like self-critical, that why I'm feeling this way, or why I have been feeling stuck in a situation. It shouldn't be like this. Practice some self-compassion, that it's completely normal to feel the way you have been feeling. Practice some self-care as well. We do have our own ways of expressing our emotions. As I say that, if it's not seeing a professional, maybe there's something else which works for you. Maybe writing helps. You, or maybe going for a walk helps you, right? Just to let it all out, like de-stress for some time, like de-stress for some times. You have to, like, everybody has their own ways of, expressing their emotions, taking care of themselves, right? So maybe...
What have you seen commonly that people practice and that helps a lot? Let's say some meditation, journaling. Can you give me like 5 common activities that you could do?
Yes. Connecting with nature. Nature is such a healer. Once you start noticing the flow of, the nature, how things are changing, you start to feel that, you can embrace life around you, right? So connecting with nature, writing is a very powerful tool. Also, as I said, that, creating that support system for yourself, it could come from your friends, family, it could come from someone outside as well. Someone who can truly like listen to you in situations like that, and being non-judgmental.
You have to find your tribe, your people.
Yes.
Which is sometimes hard in North American countries, I feel, because people are so busy in their own lives.
That's right.
But nature is there in abundance. Maybe that works.
Yes. Also, creativity, like that's many of research studies proven that creativity is a great way of expressing emotions. A lot of people do start to explore art and craft, or like any other creative activity they can engage in as per their interest to express their emotions through that.
It is very irony, but for women, or like sometimes for me, cleaning up helps so much as well. Like when I'm maybe stressed or something, but when I start cleaning, I feel so much good.
Yes.
I feel so better. So creativity maybe like is a very fancy word, but anything that helps. Sometimes cleaning, sometimes cooking as well. Like it is different to like get up and start cooking every day. But sometimes when you feel like doing something and you're cooking out of joy, that is different. So you should find even like regular activities that, helps you or makes you feel better.
That's right. Because cooking is also being creative. You're creating something, right?
So just to give like, common example, and not for people to think I'm not an artist, I can't draw, I can't write. You have to find your own ways of doing an activity.
That's right.
And engaging yourself. That is the basics of it.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
But I hear a lot about NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. What is that and how does it I have never heard this term before.
Yes.
So can you just explain about that?
Yes. So neuro-linguistic programming is a way of like understanding the power of your subconscious mind. We think that we are doing everything consciously, but the power our subconscious mind holds, most of the patterns we have been following in our lives, it's coming from there. There's usually like subconsciously we have involved ourselves into patterns which we have been following for years, right? For example, how we talk to ourselves. Overthinking, as I said, that maybe there's a trigger and automatically you get into that loop of thinking it over and over again, right? So neuro-linguistic programming is a modality which helps people to understand which pattern they might be holding on to, and if there's a need, how to break free from that pattern and reshape their belief system.
Okay. Can you give an example of how this could apply?
Yes. So for example, when it comes to setting boundaries, right? Maybe a person, every time, a person try to set a healthy boundaries with their primary caregivers when during the childhood, received a pushback. It didn't go well. Right. So now this person believes that there's no point of like even trying to set a boundary with someone, because every time I try to do that, that's a reaction I receive. I don't receive a good response. Right. So that's the pattern the person has been holding on to for years. Right. With neuro-linguistic programming, a practitioner try to help the person why that pattern exists. It's coming from your childhood experience or it's coming from somewhere else. And then we reflect back on every single incident or every single circumstance when the person automatically followed that pattern. And after that, there are different techniques we try for the person to break free from that pattern, so that there's a different like outcome to that situation, which is possible as well, which the person might not even be seeing or realizing, right? So that's how the neuro-linguistic programming helps to break free from those patterns and focus on a different outcome, which is possible. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any example with which you've worked with a client or something which will help me understand this in a better way as well?
Yes. So I worked with a client who got out of a relationship. Of course, it wasn't going well for her. And there's usually like a common way she would react when a relationship ends, right? There was quite a lot of self-harm she would do to herself. And that's how she's been, not in like just romantic relationships, but that's how she's been responding to even, whenever she feels rejected by a family member or a friend or a colleague, right? So I helped her understand like why she reacts that way. It was coming from her childhood experiences. Like she feels that it's completely normal, to self-harm. For her, it was like numbing her pain through doing that. And through different techniques, I was able to help her find an alternative way of responding when she feels rejected. So we practice that through visualizations. There's so many other different techniques. There's a meta model where I really encourage her to challenge her own belief system. Why she feels that, self-harm is the only way of responding when a relationship ends or when she feels rejected. Why she feels that. Is there any other way she can respond? So through different techniques, she was able to reshape her belief system and learn to, respond in a healthier way when dealing with rejection. Yeah.
That sounds very hopeful.
Yeah.
But can you share some techniques that our viewers can try at home, or, some simple techniques that will be helpful?
Yes. So neuro-linguistic programming involves quite a lot of challenging your own belief system, because that's necessary, as I said, to break free from those patterns. We are usually like following a pattern which we don't even realize. To break free from that, sometimes you have to challenge your own thoughts. So very simple technique which everybody could use. For example, you feel that, you're not going to do well in an interview. There's an interview coming up and a person feels that there's no way he's going to, crack it, do well. That's a belief the person is holding on to. The first reminder everybody could give to themselves is that our thoughts, sometimes they're not rational. It's okay to challenge our thoughts. The person can really challenge his or her own thought that why, he or her is feeling that not going to do well in that interview. Is there any other outcome possible? So that's it sounds like a very simple reminder a person can give to ourselves that it's okay to challenge our own belief system. In many situations you get that opportunity. In a day you get like an opportunity, right? to challenge your own belief system and really break free from that self-doubt, those limiting beliefs. So that's something everybody could try.
Right, definitely. And I think that is very helpful if you're conscious enough to with your thoughts.
Yes.
What am I talking to myself and how do I challenge? This will be very helpful.
That's right.
Coming to the books that you have written, we already spoke about the journal or 100 days. You also wrote another book, The Courage to Feel.
Yes.
Can you tell something about that?
So The Courage to Feel is, the inspiration behind was like someone who wants to start their journey of journaling. There are very specific questions. That book is very straightforward, same prompts, every single page, right? You get to, and it all talks about where you're feeling in the moment. It encourages a person to feel and express. That's why I named it the courage to feel. So it's also a guided journal with very specific general prompts, very specific questions, so that if somebody would like to start their journey of journaling, that would be a book to start with.
Okay, but even that is a journal or it's a book?
It's a journal.
What transformation are you hoping readers would go through when they start with the journal? Is there a transformation they would want to see?
Encountering your own emotions, this is what I have been feeling. Really like taking it out and putting it on a surface like a piece of paper, right? And it's very transformative, as I said, Neha. Like people will start that they start feeling comfortable, writing about their emotions, really being comfortable how they're feeling, So yeah.
And I think journaling can be intimidating when you begin with, because when I started journaling, I was like, I used to like entire story. This happened, then that happened, then it's just like taking meeting minutes.
Yeah.
Before you write like all sentences, but as in how you practice, you get to know what you are actually supposed to write, how your feelings, what you're feeling in the moment. And I think the problem or the biggest hurdle is people just give up before trying.
That's right.
Or they don't even try. They just feel it's so intimidating. They don't try. And they're like, no, it doesn't work for me or whatever. But I think taking the first step, trying it out, at least for a certain time, it's only then. And it really helps. It is just like talking to a friend. And you can vent out. And when you write, there are so many realizations that happen to you. Oh, this is what I'm writing. So maybe this happened. This, there's just so many facets to it. But because I've done journaling, I think about journaling all the time. I understand that it's importance and it is like a therapy.
That's right. And as you're saying, it's a very secure and safe way of expressing emotions.
Exactly.
Because the control is in your hand. You are writing your own thoughts, your own emotions in a way you feel comfortable in. Of course, it could be like writing paragraphs, or it could be writing just the most significant thoughts you're experiencing in the moment. It could be 3 lines. Even
Yeah.
I have seen journals like 1 line in a day journals as well.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
are also
yeah,
available.
yeah.
What have you been thinking the most in a day, right?
Yeah.
And you can really, if you reflect back, if you like journal for like a few months or like for a time, you will see that how you have been evolving as a person. Also, when you look back on the journals which you wrote
Yeah,
6 months
definitely.
ago,
Yeah.
maybe your response to certain experiences in life, you have been responding in different ways. So you can really like reflect back on how you evolved as a person.
Yeah. And to be honest,
Yeah.
such journals with prompts are
Yeah.
your first steps. But even sometimes, to begin with, if you're absolute beginners, apart from the book, there are so many apps these days of journal. If you
Yes.
think writing with a pen and paper
Yeah.
is like a 10 step, the first step, just open your journal app on the iPhone. It's easily available. Start writing. You can lock the app as well so that it's safe and secure. So there are so many tools available. It's just your willingness to try and taking that first step, I think.
That's right. There's this workshop which I facilitated recently for seniors, South Asian seniors, and we tried art journaling.
Okay.
So I gave them different magazines and pictures, and they had to cut out a picture, find a picture which they feel very related to. And they had to write which memories, that picture brought back, what emotions they felt when they looked at that picture. And then they had to create it like different images which comes to their mind when they looked at that picture, right? So journaling can be done in many, many ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But coming back to you now, you work, as we already spoke, that you work in such a heavy space, dealing with emotions and grief all the time. What are some of the things you do to keep yourself sane and de-stress?
Yes. So walking,
Yeah.
I go for a walk almost every day. Also spending time out in nature. Like we are lucky. Calgary is such a beautiful city. So many
Definitely.
different places close by. On a weekend, I try to plan a road trip, just spend time outside in nature if I can. And also for myself as well, I practice journaling. So before going to bed, I write, the thoughts which I experienced in a day, and then the emotions attached to those thoughts. That's something I have been practicing for months now. And yeah, those are like my ways of caring for myself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But someone who might want to reach you or talk to you, what would be the best way to reach out to you?
Yes. So the best way would be through my Instagram page, Rare Mind Talks. A person can DM me. And also I post a lot of information related to the webinars I offer. Most of the times those webinars are free. Where people can just join, learn more about neuro-linguistic programming or grief and loss, or like any different, topic which they would like. Also, there are like sometimes there are workshops which I post about, many different resources. So my Instagram page is something everybody can check out.
Yeah, definitely.
Rare Mind Talks.
Yeah, I'll link the page right here.
Sure.
What is the last message you want to leave the viewers with?
Yes. So expressing your emotions, it's not a sign of weakness. As a human being, it's very normal to experience all that different, spectrum of emotions. And we all should try to find ways to express our emotions.
Yeah, I think there's so much value in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And this was such an enriching and deep conversations that, will benefit our community and people who are grieving. So there's so much value to this. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode today and talking about grief, which is it's surrounded by a lot of stigma. Thank you so much. And to our viewers who are listening, if you're still tuned in, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And go check out her page on Instagram. And I have mentioned all the journals that she's written and her Instagram page. All the links are in the description. Go follow her, and I'll see you in the next one.